So I mean, like, you went 2012.
Yeah.
You said you were coming up. You joined the writing staff when, like, I mean, he was already big, but like, I feel like Fallon was really blowing up then, right? Like, I don't know, like people were talking about him all the time. Things were going viral or whatever.
Things were going viral. I was my first day was January 2nd, 2013.
Okay.
And it was still late night. It was still late night with Jimmy Fallon when I was hired.
Right.
And I remember, like, they hired us, and there was another guy who was hired at the same time I was.
Mm-hmm.
They hired us, and it was like cool, and it was like, very chill. And around April, they were like, "Hey, we might become the Tonight Show." And we're like,
in April of 2013,
and we're like,
yeah, because it went over in 2014, right?
And we're like, what? Didn't that just happen? That whole thing? And they were like, yeah. And we also, like, in like March, we like switched floors, and they were like, "Oh, it's for something." And I was like, "All right, I don't ask questions." And it was so weird. Like, we just moved one floor up, but it was like this whole to do, and we were still late night this whole time. And then, like, April, they're like, "Oh, we're going to become the Tonight Show," and we're like, "Really? Do we have to move again?" And they were like, "No, everything else is the same." And so it was this very strange process where we became the Tonight Show. In a year. So we went from late night to Tonight Show, and I got to be part of the launch of a new Tonight Show, which is bizarre, which should not be.
Yeah.
I should not be. I don't know why I'm a part of this.
Don't.
No. I mean, it's not like it's just the weirdest, because there's times when, you forget what you do for a living, and it sounds like an arrogant thing, like, I forget, but like literally, like sometimes I'll come to work and be like, fuck, I don't know, I don't have any jokes. Oh, there's cornbread in the kitchen. Wow. And like, oh, free pizza. Oh, right. This will be a great Monday. And then I'm like, no, I'm writing for television. Like, go focus on your jokes. Yeah, but it's really cool. It's been a really cool experience, and it's like, I think that when we became the Tonight Show, we were like so worried about, like, making sure we preserve the legacy. Like, Jimmy really wanted to bring back that sort of old-timey New York feel that Jack Parr and the early Johnny Carson had, where it felt like this, like, hip, cool show. And it's cool that we've done that. Like, it's cool to have, like, put together a show that, like, people seem to really like.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, numbers-wise or ratings-wise or whatever. You don't have to talk about that if you don't want to, but I think it's the biggest one. Like, just from what my impressions of it, it's like definitely.
It does. It's right now. It's the biggest one. I mean, obviously, like, if Colbert or Kimmel has a big guest, or something.
There's like all those guys are
all great,
but I just feel like Fallon is always, like, especially I'm in college. I'm 19, and I feel among my demographic, Fallon is like far and away the most popular.
Thank you. And we very much tried to keep our audience happy. And of course, everyone's friends with the other shows too. Like, like I was at a party 2 nights ago with, like, people from Colbert. Like, we're all very cool. There's always this weird assumption on the internet, because I'll, like, check internet comments because I'm terrible, and people will be like, Colbert for life, Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, everyone's friends. We're all on board with each other.
I'm not trying to incite you to go fuck Colbert or whatever.
No, and I never would, because the magic of the internet and DVRs is that we can all watch all of them. Because I enjoy what he does, and I enjoy what Kimmel does, and I enjoy what my boss does, or I wouldn't be there.
Well, it's funny, those people on the internet. It's like the kind of people who are like, let's say you have a friend named Joe, and they tell you, might be like, Joe fucking sucks. Like, fuck you, Joe's my friend. Like, it's kind of this weird, like, they don't understand that there's, you're all creative people in the same space.
Or like I saw, like, this comment, something about Seth, because Seth just had a baby, and so he's done a bunch of sketches about having a baby. People are like, we get it, Seth, you had a baby. Oh, now we have to hear about it on television. I'm like, what do you want? What are you looking for?
Yeah.
What makes you happy?
Well, it's so funny because these shows are based on the personality of these people. Like, it's called the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, or I forget, like Late Night with Seth Meyers or whatever. So it's like, they're going to talk about those things.
They're going to talk about their lives, because I mean, and that's what they are. They're, people always ask me, like, oh, are you afraid of, like, YouTube? What YouTube can do? And I'm like, no, talk shows and sketch shows are made for YouTube. We didn't know it. They didn't know it in 1950. But it's just, that's what a lot of YouTube stars are. They just have very small scale talk shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know about other scripted series, but we're fine. Yeah. But like a lot of people, and the other thing, people I think on the internet, like they're like, oh, you know, can't believe like Seth did this sketch. Like it just wasn't up to. It's like it was probably written that morning. Like late night shows, we have such a fast turnover rate,
right,
that it's not always going to be like like an episode of Game of Thrones where it's like perfectly crafted.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. The thing you mentioned about YouTube is that, and a lot of the Fallon stuff blows up on Tonight Show stuff blows up on YouTube. Yeah. Like, I mean, you guys have a big YouTube following as well. Yeah. People catching stuff after the fact and stuff like that.
We've been very, and that's something that Jimmy did. Jimmy, when he started late night in 2009, before I was there,
right.
He said, this is going to be the way that people digest, you know, these shows. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, whatever. Because YouTube was big, but I think it was still sort of like, you know, you could see a cat. You know, or like you catch like a pirated version of an SNL sketch.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Jimmy was like, no, this is how people are going to watch stuff. They're going to watch it online. And everyone's like, whatever. And now, because he embraced that, I feel like he understands that space.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk a little bit just about how, like, the day-to-day of writing for Tonight Show. Like, what does your day look like in general?
I usually get up I used to, when I first started, I got up at 5 in the morning and came in, like, crack of dawn.
That's too early.
I was very nervous, and I wanted to show that I was dedicated.
Sure. Yeah, that's always how it starts. That's how it always starts, rather.
And then I think I sort of got a better sense of how I write and a better sense of how the show sounds. Because you sort of learn the voice as you go on. And so now I usually wake up about 6:30 or so. Get to work.
Still too early.
Get to work. By the way, everyone at the show has a different writing method. Some people write from home in the morning.
Sure.
And then they roll in like at 10 a.m. Some people come in as early as I do. It's just sort of like, because we have deadlines, but there's no like card to punch. You know, but for me, if I'm at my home computer, I'm going to like open up Steam or something. I'm gonna get distracted.
Yeah.
So I get in early. So I get to work probably like 7:30, 7:45.
Mm-hmm.
Backing up a bit, on the subway in the morning, I'll like read over the news. We usually get from like our producers will get like, here's the news that happened.
Sure.
You know, here's the debate. Here's a summary of this. Here's a summary of like that.
Yeah.
And I'll read over that and I'll be like, oh, this might be a good idea. That might be a good idea. Get coffee or whatever. And then I pitch a few ideas. I pitch like a few small sketches for the monologue. You know, whether that's like sort of a funny list or like a funny video. I'll write out those pitches, send those in. And then for about 2.5 or 3 hours, I just write monologue jokes.
Mm-hmm. So are people segmented into monologue writers or sketch writers, or is it kind of just like everyone contributes?
They are segmented, but the way they're segmented is more like a specialty. You're not like locked.
Sure.
You know.
So it allows for a little bit of movement if you got a good idea or whatever.
You know, generally, like, everyone's writing for everything, but they're sort of like, okay, you do this mostly. If we have an emergency, this is what we'll turn to.
Sure.
Okay. So, yeah, so I wrote a bunch of monologue jokes, and I'm more on the monologue side because I'm more of a joke person. I write a bunch of monologue jokes, send them in. You know, if there's changes to if a sketch that I wrote is picked and I need to change it, I'll rewrite that. You know, I'll write thank you notes and stuff like that based on whatever day it is. We have different morning deadlines, different days. And so, so I'll write thank you notes, stuff like that, send in my jokes, wait a bit to see, you know, what I got picked. You know, and then after that we have things like, we'll have like more, you know, breaking news where we have to write on that. Then we have a couple meetings. There's something called the creative meeting, which is where Jimmy picks sketches.
Okay.
So, and that's more just like him being like, okay, so he goes through this, he picks, like, okay, I want to do this, don't want to do that, or change this, whatever.
But he's very involved.
He's very involved. He gets there early. Okay. He's there early in the morning. He stays late at night. He's very involved. I feel like, and I've said this before, there's this old story that I think people assume is true about every late night host, and that's like, at the end of his run, Johnny Carson would show up at like 3 p.m., tape at 5, and go home.
Yeah, roll in, roll out, like, instantly, yeah.
And maybe that's what Johnny Carson did when he'd been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
But we're not like that, and, you know, Seth's not like nobody's like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jimmy's there all the time, and he's super involved, and he really cares about, you know, what he's doing. To the point sometimes when, like, you know, you'll get a note where it's like, hey, you know, he didn't really like this, you know, but maybe try this. And you're like, I mean, I don't know. Okay, wait, actually, no, it's Jimmy. I'll do it. Like, in your head, you do that thing that everybody does where you're like, man, my boss. Then you're like, no, he understands what he will be saying for himself on live television.
Yeah.
And he's so good at that too. He's so good at punching things up.
He's a comedian himself, so you respect that.
And he's also
so like he's just some dude.
Well, he's also very good at knowing. You know, he knows what obviously he knows what his voice is, but he's so good at, like, giving you notes where you're like, oh, of course that's the way to do that. You'll spend 2 hours working on something for him, and then in, like, 10 minutes he'll be like, well, this is how you fix it. And you're like, God damn it, that is how you fix it. I don't, like, you know, where you're like, this is broken. This is unfixable. And then he fixes it.
Yeah. That's a great thing for a boss, ostensibly, to do.
So he's really good at that. Yeah, so after creative meeting, then we have the monologue meeting, which is where we just pick jokes that go into the rehearsal. Mm-hmm. And that's just more like, they have to separate them because creative let me back up a bit. Creative meeting also involves people who have to do technical elements. So if there's a video edit, you know, the graphic people have to work on that. Or if there's, like, you know, singing, you know, we have to make sure the lighting guys can do, like, a spotlight and the Roots can get the song. So that has to be earlier than the monologue meeting. Monologue is just like, okay, here's some words that we can paint on cue cards, and that requires less production. Right. So then we have monologue meeting. He goes through monologue, picks stuff. Then we have a rehearsal in front of a live audience, and that's like an audience of people who, you know, basically couldn't get tickets to the live show, to the real taping. And based on that, you know, he'll cut stuff, he'll add stuff, he'll improvise stuff. Based on that, we have what goes into the show at 5 p.m., and then we tape at 5.
Just tape at 5, okay. That's, I mean, I don't know how it compares, because I've seen some other late night shows. I don't know how that compares. Is that relatively late?
No, that's pretty standard. Okay. Seth's show tapes, I think, an hour and a half later, and that's just because they're on, like, the floor above us. So, like, our noise would carry.
Right.
They're below us. I think they're above us. Anyway,
But it would interfere, basically. It would interfere. If you were both doing it at the same time.
So it's about 5 or so, yeah.
Okay. So, and then, do you write some more after, or during the taping, rather? Because I'm sure you're not, like, out there every day watching.
Yeah, we write during the taping, and we write pitches for the next day that are due at 6.
And then, are you out the door at 6, or are you late? Are you out late?
Depends on what we need to do. Usually out the door about 6. Sometimes it'll be like, hey, we have this big project coming up. Could you stay a bit late and write for that? Or
still a long day.
It's a long day.
Yeah. Because you say out at 6, it doesn't sound that late, but you're there, like you said, like 7:30, and then the nature of the job is you're always thinking about jokes. You know, every time you see the news and
emergencies where something happens. You know, something gets cut at the last minute. So there's definitely moments when you sort of get like, you're like, oh, I'm screwed. You know, where you're like, oh no, like there's definitely been times when like breaking news has happened. You're like, oh God, we have like 30 minutes before we tape, but we need to write on this. You know, I forget what it was, but there was something in the last couple months that wasn't like, and it's not like breaking news like a tornado, like we're not writing on tragedies, but sometimes we're like, this is something everyone's going to talk about.
Well, like Trump says something dumb or something,
but sometimes it's like so insane that you're like, this is going to go viral right now. We need to get something on it. Yeah, it's a long day, but it's cool because at the end of the day, you sort of like, on a good day, it's cool. On a good day when you have a lot of stuff in the show and you're like, yeah, all right, I wrote for the show. And on a bad day, you're like, I hate myself. Which is any job. Yeah.
Well, and that's great. Like, it sounds like it's a really creatively fulfilling job.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, you're obviously doing great work there.
You.
I mean, I don't know what jokes, because of course you're writing it in
Jimmy's voice,
so I don't know which ones are yours, but they're all good. So.
I sometimes have a lot of the depressing jokes, but I like that.
Okay. That makes sense.
My favorite thank you note I ever wrote was, it was, you ever see, like, cartoon ghosts, like, in elementary school when they'd have, like, little drawing of a little ghost, and it has, like, a little smile on his face? And I wrote, thank you, cartoon ghost, for letting me know how happy I'll be when I'm dead. And the audience was so not on board with it that I loved it. I loved it.
Like, they didn't react?
They were just like,
kinda,
oh! And I was like, yes! Give in to your hate!
See, that's, like, legitimately funny to me, but I know people are like, that's too dark. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
And
that's what comedy is.
Right. And that's the thing, too, is, like, especially with things like thank you notes, a lot of it's like, okay, well, where's the Venn diagram? Like, what is the Venn diagram of me and Jimmy? Because Jimmy, like, you know, he has not like he has a dark side, like, he's done some dark shit. Like, not like that.
He's a human. He's been sad before.
He's been sad before, and also he finds some things that are, like, because it's dark, but it's also cartoony dark.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So he's definitely had moments like that when he's like, you know, like, he's like, yeah, this is funny. It's funny. Also, it's a cartoon ghost. Nobody's getting it.
Yeah. That's funny.
So yeah, it's a very cool job. It's very nice. And Jimmy's so fucking cool. I probably shouldn't say fucking cool like that, but he's so cool. It just sounds so weird to say that. He's so fucking cool. He's a very cool boss.
Yeah, it sounds like it. He sounds like he's just an involved guy.